So from the year 1000 to the year 1500, everyone was Catholic. And then people started to become Protestant with Luther, and it's been a slow fall since. But everything eventually leads back to Rome. Now let's get into some book suggestions here. Like I said, Catechism of the Catholic Church. These are just normal books like Catholic 101. I have a whole nother multiple sections of like political Catholicism, economic Catholicism, spirituality specifically. I have a bunch of books on that I'm like really into. But basically just getting into Catholicism, Catechism of the Catholic Church. I'm just going to turn to a random page here. So just talking about the makeup of the church. The graces of baptism, the forgiveness of sins, the necessity of baptism, and these are well thought out quotes throughout the Bible in here. Talks about the theology of angels, purgatory, everything is in here. Get yourself a copy. Of course, a Catholic Bible. I got my St. Joseph's edition. I don't ever hear anyone talk about this version. I like it though.
Beautiful.
Huge, beautiful. It's the Catholic one, so it has all the books.
What's the main one that everyone talks about? I always forget. Alex
The traditional Catholic one is called the Douay-Rheims edition of the Bible. That I read a whole book on the purest.
I think that's the one I have.
The purest interpretation and how it's been interpreted from its original language into German, into English or whatnot, is the Douay-Rheims. It is very... I wouldn't say that that's for kids, because I think the verbiage is very... It's not modern at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of that ancient language that I know that you and I had a problem with it whenever we were younger.
Like
a lot of the vowels
yeah.
It's basically a whole Bible like that. So as an adult, it might make more sense, but as a kid, I know that I personally would have a problem reading the Douay-Rheims. As a kid. Now I'd be fine. So we got the Catechism, we got the Holy Bible, Catholic edition. Code of Canon Law. This one is less important. This version here specifically has Latin on one side and English on the other. I just kind of have this as...
That'd be cool.
More of like a reference. Because Western civilization was founded on, a specific type of law that kind of came out of the whole Roman tradition of administration. So this is the Latin and English version. It's interesting to have because the Vatican, follows this law. The priests in every country follow this specific law. What I get from my confirmation, whenever I'm a confirmation sponsor for people, I actually get them Why We Are Catholic by Trent Horn. Small little book. I'm a huge fan of this because it's very simple. It talks about every topic for like 2 pages. And the font, it's
small.
It's small. It's nothing crazy. Like age 14 plus, easily read this. How the Catholic Church Built Western Civilization. Huge fan of this book. This is more leaving the realm of spirituality, legislation, all the ones that I just mentioned, and more of the historical reasons why the West is Catholic. Why it was created under the Catholic Church, and why that's sort of like our destiny to return to the return of the King. I'm definitely a monarchist. I think that there needs to be a return of a Catholic monarch at some point, but that honestly can't really be done until people start becoming Catholic.
Or the collapse.
Yeah, or the collapse of civilization. This book actually really got me. One of the first books that I read whenever I started my journey into really digging into the Catholic Church is the Ecumenical Councils of the Catholic Church. That sounds very boring. However...
How do you say the first word?
The Ecumenical Councils of the Catholic Church.
This
is very interesting because it just goes back to the very beginning of the Ecumenical Councils are whenever the main people in the church come together for a council. You have the greatest minds in the world coming together for extended periods of time with all their documents and different authority levels of like how we figure out what is true. And they make agreements on these things, and that's how the church progresses forward. That's the Catholic version. The Protestant is, I disagree with you, I'm going to go start another church.
God forbid.
Then you got the encyclicals. This is just one version of it, and this is very thin. There's a lot of encyclicals. This was pretty cool, though. This is just basically the Pope talking to the priests over the course of 2,000 years of like the different trends and things that are going on, and like the church's reaction to a lot of things going on. The Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, all the different heresies, all talked about in here. This does not have all of them. I don't think it has much of Pope Leo the 13th. Because he wrote so many encyclicals. And then just one on the Mass, 100 questions about the Mass. I really enjoyed this whenever I was looking into just basic Catholic questions.
And of all these books, what do you think they should start with? Besides the Bible. I think the Bible's too hard. I think the Bible should be definitely there to read over time. But like, if you were going to get into Catholicism, what would be the number one book?
If you have a question on like theological things, then the Catechism. Like if you're thinking, I don't want to join the Catholic Church because of their view of purgatory, you might want to read the Catechism, because the Catechism lays out why we believe in this stuff. The next option would be Why We're Catholic, which literally summarizes it in a normal, modern language, the theological stuff. If you're thinking about like almost like I started this whole thing off on like utilitarianism of like from a political, economic, like where is Western civilization? This is the book for you. Because so how the Catholic Church built Western civilization. That's where my interests typically go. I've always been Catholic, so whenever I read this, it just kind of fit. So I didn't have to deal with like the theological, philosophical issues at first. I just read this, and it all made sense. That's where we came from.
Yeah,
that's
plus we went
to
Catholic school,
yeah.
So we didn't have to really question anything.
Yeah, so that's I don't even know how many books that was, but that's just some book recommendations for getting into the Catholic Church. I've read out all these. I don't know how many times. This is like I've read these pretty early on. It's been several years now. This is just like the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
This is get you going to the church, taking your faith seriously, and then you get into the other realms of like
saint books.
Okay, so yeah, the saint books. Like I want to take my spirituality further. I got another 5 to 10 books on the best saints of like the last 2,000 years on deep spirituality.
The Desert Fathers.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then the political, economic stuff of like, okay, so now we have a whole Catholic population. Now what are we supposed to do? Now we move towards politics, and we got to rule politics and the economy, and all things have to be ordered towards Christ. Like Peter and Paul, they didn't just go, we're just going to convert a bunch of people and die. They went to Rome. They wanted to convert the empire, the emperor. And so that gets Christianity involved in politics at that point, and economics, and getting rid of slavery and all these kind of things. So